Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Dacom TinyPods ANC. So a few months back we did a review on the regular version of the TinyPods, which offered pretty good sound quality, albeit they were fairly basic, and as the name implies, this model has a very similar design to that model, except it now just adds active noise cancellation. It claims to cancel up to 35 decibels, and then it's using 10mm dynamic drivers, which are a little bit larger than average. And in terms of controls, they are touch sensitive, and they allow you to do things like go through the ANC audio transparency modes by double tapping on either side, as well as playing and pausing and skip tracks. But one thing that you don't get is the ability to raise the volume higher and lower directly on them. I do think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity, and since there isn't a companion app, it can't be remapped. They're IP55, so they're going to be sweatproof and rainproof, and they support the usual codecs like SBC and AAC, along with emitting a low latency gaming mode. So that is something to keep in mind. Now the battery life on these will last upwards of 32 hours with the battery case, with the buds themselves lasting for around 6 hours of continuous music listening before you have to top them up again, which is around average. The buds themselves, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment, some spare silicone tips, as well as a quick user guide. Taking a closer look at the design, it's arguably one of the best characteristics of the TinyPods ANC in my opinion. Just like before, this is relatively compact, it does feel very well constructed and put together. There's this very shiny and actually pretty premium feeling metal strip surrounding the sides. However, it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet and can attract smudges, but overall still looks quite good. We have just the branding, a Type-C port on the bottom there for charging. The case here, by the way, doesn't support wireless charging, so that's one other thing to keep in mind. So design is definitely one thing I do like. The chrome ring here also hides the LED lights that you can take a look at to see how much juice is remaining out of 3 bars. When it's turned off, it's almost impossible to make out. It's the same accent here, which looks like a mesh. However, this is still a polycarbonate plastic. And then the top here is touch sensitive. We have some of the microphones located on the stem, and overall a very compact design, a little reminiscent of the AirPod Pros, but not in a bad way. At least the shape here is fairly ergonomic and comfortable. When you pop them in, they felt secure and didn't apply too much pressure. For ANC buds, they are pretty lightweight, and I found the touch controls to be rather sensitive, so I didn't have to hit on it multiple times for it to get triggered, which is good. And the size here, again, is pretty small. Just like before though, they don't have any additional functions like an auto play and pause sensor. So like I said, really the only upgrade that we are talking about is the presence of active noise cancellation. Moving into audio quality and performance, the good news is for such simple buds, relatively speaking, the TinyPods ANC don't disappoint in fairly wide soundstage and also have a great satisfying bass. So if you enjoy low frequency sounds like a drum beat, any kick in terms of EDM music, they are actually performing very well there, but at the same time it doesn't feel overpowering and still feels controlled. In fact, that's a similar characteristic to how I would describe the original TinyPods. The mids and trebles are also handled pretty well for how I would compare them as budget buds at the end of the day. There are still good amounts of detail when it comes to instrumentals. Overall, they also sound quite clean, so you won't really hear any hints of static. There's no hissing, hum, or any distortion in the background aside from the music itself, which is great. You can play and pause the music, and everything also sounded pretty smooth. It's also for watching videos on YouTube as well as Netflix, again, despite lacking a low latency mode. So if you are playing back things like PUBG or faster frame rate gaming, they may not be the best choice. As a result, if you're just listening to the pure sound at this price, I don't think you'll feel disappointed, at least. However, it's not necessarily going to be a huge step up either compared to the original TinyPods, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Cleaner than something like the Redmi AirDots with a bit more detail, a bit more bass, and overall just sounding a little more dynamic. Moving into the new component, which is all about the active noise cancellation, I would say these are also effective. If you are talking about lower frequency sounds, things like engines and fan noises, they certainly do get canceled out when you have it turned on, and it makes a noticeable difference. However, just like most ANC buds, especially with budget ones, it's not going to do the best job when it comes to voices and frequencies, which are going to be a little bit higher. Last but not least, phone call quality was also above average thanks to the use of the environmental noise cancellation. Works well enough for making calls as well as for video conferencing. So that's more or less it as far as our quick hands-on look at the Dacom TinyPods ANC. Again, the things that really stand out here would be the design looking pretty elegant and clean. I do like the way it feels. Touch controls are responsive and solid sound quality, energetic and loud. Downsides, though, would be the fact that it just doesn't have the most features in the world. But if you just need something simple, just purely from listening to music, want a clean design at a not too expensive price, this is not a bad choice. So you can check out more details if interested. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the TinyPods ANC.